For over 3 millennia, the Ark of the Covenant has stirred awe, devotion, and speculation. Described in ancient scripture as the sacred chest built by the Israelites to house the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, it was believed to channel divine power, part relic, part weapon, part throne of God. From bringing down city walls to parting rivers, the Ark was more than symbolic. It was feared. And then it vanished. No tomb, no record, only mystery. Across deserts, mountains, and centuries, one question endures. Was the Ark of the Covenant truly lost? Or has it remained hidden in plain sight? To understand the power and mystique of the Ark of the Covenant, we must journey back to the wilderness of Sinai. According to the book of Exodus, amid thunder and fire on Mount Sinai, God delivered his commandments to Moses, and with them, precise instructions for constructing a sacred vessel to house them. The Ark was not a mere box. It was a divine command, a symbol of a covenant between a deity and his people. Exodus 25 outlines these instructions in astonishing detail. The Ark was to be made of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, overlaid with pure gold inside and out. A golden molding, or crown, surrounded its edge. Upon its top, the mercy seat was fashioned, also of gold, flanked by 2 cherubim whose wings covered the lid. It was here, between the cherubim, that the presence of God would appear and speak to Moses. This concept, the Shekinah, or divine presence, gave the Ark a supernatural gravity. It was the mobile throne of God himself. Contained within were the 2 stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, referred to as the testimony. Later traditions and texts, including the Epistle to the Hebrews, mention that the Ark also held Aaron's rod that budded and a pot of manna, both symbols of divine authority and provision. The Ark was built not for ornament, but for function, spiritual, political, and military. It accompanied the Israelites through their desert wanderings, leading the way as a tangible manifestation of divine leadership. When the Israelites crossed the Jordan River into the Promised Land, the waters miraculously parted as the priests carrying the Ark stepped into the river, a moment echoing the parting of the Red Sea. In the Book of Numbers, strict regulations governed how the Ark was handled. Only the Levites, specifically from the family of Kohath, could carry it, and even then it was to be shielded from view. To touch it meant death. An account tragically illustrated in the story of Uzzah, who died instantly when he steadied the Ark as it appeared to topple. Leviticus reinforces the Ark's role during the annual Day of Atonement. The high priest would enter the Holy of Holies, accessible only once a year, sprinkling blood on the mercy seat to atone for the sins of Israel. In this ritual, the Ark was both a judgment seat and a symbol of mercy. The Ark was not just an artifact. It was the center of divine human interaction, feared and revered. Its power was not symbolic alone. It was portrayed as real, tangible, and sometimes deadly. Yet with all its grandeur and reverence, the biblical narrative becomes strangely quiet about it after the reign of King Solomon. And that silence is where the mystery begins. From the burning sands of Sinai to the fortified cities of Canaan, the Ark of the Covenant was not just carried, it led. As the Israelites entered the Promised Land, the Ark became the emblem of divine authority and military conquest. It was not merely a spiritual artifact, it was a weapon of war, a banner of identity, and the heart of Israel's national purpose. The book of Joshua records one of the most iconic moments in biblical history, the fall of Jericho. The Israelites, commanded not to raise arms but to walk in silence, circled the city for 7 days. At the front of their procession marched priests blowing ram's horns and bearing the Ark. On the 7th day, as trumpets blared and voices rose in unison, the walls of Jericho crumbled into dust. This was not just a victory, it was a sign that the Ark carried supernatural power, capable of altering the physical world at God's command. After the conquest, the Ark found a resting place at Shiloh, a religious center in central Israel. For generations it remained there, housed in a sacred tent, the tabernacle. Shiloh became the beating heart of early Israelite worship, a place where sacrifices were offered and divine judgments were sought. But the reverence did not always protect the Ark. During a desperate battle against the Philistines, the Israelites took the Ark from Shiloh to the front lines, believing it would secure their victory. But instead, the unthinkable happened. The Israelites were routed, and the ark was captured. A moment of national catastrophe. The Philistines brought the ark to their cities, placing it in the temple of their god Dagon. But the presence of the ark brought plagues, tumors, and the toppling of idols. In panic and reverence, they returned it. After its return, the ark moved between locations. First to Beth Shemesh, then to Kiriath Jearim, and finally, during the reign of King David, to Jerusalem. David danced before the ark as it entered the city, showing its centrality not just to religion, but to kingship itself. He planned to build a temple worthy of it, but that task fell to his son. Solomon's temple, completed in the 10th century BCE, was designed with one purpose at its heart: to house the ark in the Holy of Holies. There, in a chamber veiled and unapproachable, the ark stood as the throne of God on earth. When the ark was placed in the temple, Scripture says that a cloud, signifying the divine presence, filled the sanctuary, forcing priests to leave. The connection was complete. God dwelled among his people. But then a shift occurred. After Solomon, the ark fades from mention in the biblical text. It is conspicuously absent during the reigns of later kings. By the time of the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem, it is never mentioned again. This silence is deafening, and it fuels one of the greatest historical mysteries of all time. In the year 587 BCE, Jerusalem fell. The armies of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, breached the city walls after a prolonged siege. Solomon's temple, the crown jewel of Israelite worship, was looted, desecrated, and set ablaze. With fire and sword, Babylon crushed the kingdom of Judah. But amid the lists of looted treasures and exiled leaders, one glaring absence ignites centuries of intrigue. There is no mention of the ark. The Book of Kings and Chronicles describe the fall of the temple in detail. They list bronze pillars, gold basins, and other temple furnishings taken to Babylon. Yet the ark, arguably the holiest item in the temple, is never named. Did the Babylonians take it? Did the priests hide it? Was it destroyed in the fire? One theory suggests that King Josiah, a reformer who reigned decades before the Babylonian invasion, had already hidden the ark. In 2 Chronicles 35:3, Josiah commands the Levites to place the holy ark in the temple Solomon built, implying it had previously been removed, possibly for safekeeping. But where had it gone, and who moved it? Rabbinic tradition holds that the prophet Jeremiah, foreseeing the destruction, hid the ark in a cave on Mount Nebo, the same place from which Moses once viewed the Promised Land. According to 2 Maccabees 2:4-8, Jeremiah sealed the cave and declared it would remain hidden until God gathers his people again. Though not part of the Hebrew Bible, this apocryphal text preserves a powerful oral legend that has echoed for centuries. Other Jewish writings, such as the Mishnah and Talmud, offer clues. The Mishnah notes that the Holy of Holies in the Second Temple, the one rebuilt after the return from exile, was empty. There was no ark, no tablets, no divine presence between cherubim. The centerpiece of Solomon's temple had vanished and was never replaced. Outside the biblical canon, Ethiopian Christian tradition maintains that the ark was taken to Axum, where it rests to this day in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. According to the Kebra Nagast, an ancient Ethiopian text, the ark was spirited away by Menelik I, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Brought to Ethiopia centuries before the Babylonian conquest, the ark was hidden before disaster could strike Jerusalem. This tradition is fiercely protected. No outsider is allowed to see the object claimed to be the true ark. Meanwhile, some scholars suggest the ark was destroyed, consumed in the fire, or dismantled by Babylonian hands. Yet this theory fails to account for the careful cataloging of plundered items. Why list lesser artifacts but not the most sacred of all? There are even speculative theories connecting the ark's fate to Egypt, to secret underground chambers beneath the Temple Mount, or to desert caves yet undiscovered. But what is most striking is not what was said, but what wasn't. The biblical silence speaks volumes. A relic once so central, so powerful, vanishes without explanation. This disappearance has not only deepened the ark's mystique, it has given birth to a legend. The Ark of the Covenant did not simply disappear. It became invisible in history's most powerful way, by leaving behind questions no one can conclusively answer. It transformed from an object into an obsession, from an artifact into a myth, or perhaps a hidden reality. Among the most persistent and dramatic claims is that the Ark resides in Aksum, Ethiopia, guarded in a chapel by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. According to the Kebra Nagast, a 14th century Ethiopian epic, the Ark was taken from Jerusalem by Menelik Thust, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. The tale recounts that Menelik, upon visiting his father, was given the Ark, or, in some versions, took it unknowingly with divine approval and brought it to Ethiopia, where it has remained ever since. Today, the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Aksum claims to house the sacred Ark. One guardian monk is appointed for life to watch over the relic. No one else is allowed to see it. No photos exist. No public viewing has ever been granted. Skeptics argue that this lack of access undermines the claim. Yet the fervent belief of millions and the absolute secrecy surrounding the artifact only add to its mystique. Closer to the Ark's last known location is perhaps the most logical and controversial theory, that the Ark still lies beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, hidden in a subterranean vault. According to some Jewish traditions and Talmudic sources, the priests of Solomon's temple, foreseeing the Babylonian threat, concealed the Ark in a secret chamber beneath the temple's foundations. Archaeological excavation on the Temple Mount, however, is nearly impossible. Due to religious and political tensions between Jewish and Muslim authorities, digging in the area is restricted. The Al-Aqsa Mosque and Dome of the Rock sit atop the mount, revered by Muslims as the third holiest site in Islam. Any attempt to excavate could spark conflict. As such, the theory remains largely speculative, but impossible to disprove. Another intriguing theory leads us to Mount Nebo in modern-day Jordan. According to Suk Maccabees 2:4-8, the prophet Jeremiah, under divine instruction, took the Ark and hid it in a cave on this very mountain before the Babylonian conquest. This cave, the text says, would remain sealed until God gathers his people again. Mount Nebo is traditionally believed to be the place where Moses viewed the Promised Land before his death. Archaeologists have identified ancient monastic ruins and caves in the area, but none has conclusively yielded the Ark. Still, the legend persists, especially among groups who believe the Ark will one day be revealed during a messianic age. Some scholars have explored Egyptian connections, pointing to the long periods of Israelite presence or refuge in Egypt. The city of Tanis, in the Nile Delta, was once proposed as a potential resting place, made famous by the film Raiders of the Lost Ark. While Hollywood took liberties, Tanis does have ruins of ancient temples and tombs, although no credible evidence of the Ark has ever surfaced there. A more grounded theory points to the Jewish community at Elephantine, an island in the Nile where a functioning Jewish temple existed around the 5th century BCE. Could fleeing priests have brought sacred objects, even the Ark, with them? The historical connection is plausible, but no archaeological discoveries have confirmed it. Perhaps the most surprising theory takes us deep into southern Africa, to the Lemba people of Zimbabwe and South Africa. This ethnic group claims ancient Jewish ancestry and has traditions of carrying a sacred object they call the Ngoma Longundu, or Drum of Thunder. It bears a striking resemblance to the Ark in purpose and reverence. In 2007, researchers studying the Lemba's oral traditions and DNA found evidence of Middle Eastern origins. The Ngoma, now housed in a Zimbabwean museum, may be a replica or a later interpretation of the Ark. While it's not the original, the story raises tantalizing questions about how far the Ark's legacy may have traveled. If the Ark was never found, it was never forgotten. The mystery of the Ark's fate has become a powerful magnet, pulling in archaeologists, adventurers, kings, and dreamers. It's more than a historical quest. It's a spiritual obsession. Perhaps no fictional portrayal has done more to reignite public interest than Steven Spielberg's 1981 film, Raiders of the Lost Ark. The film combined Nazi villains, ancient booby traps, and biblical power to craft a cinematic legend. But behind the fantasy lies a truth. Many real-life explorers have tried to find the Ark, and some have died trying. Ron Wyatt, an amateur archaeologist and former anesthetist, claimed in the 1980s to have found the Ark beneath the Temple Mount. His claims were met with skepticism, lacking peer-reviewed evidence and barred access to the dig site. Yet his theories continue to circulate, particularly among evangelical Christian communities. The British explorer Montague Parker, in the early 20th century, led an expedition to Jerusalem based on a supposed ancient text. He bribed guards and dug beneath the Temple Mount, but was ultimately expelled when news of the illegal excavation caused an uproar. His efforts inspired novels, conspiracy theories, and diplomatic incidents. Organizations like the Temple Institute in Jerusalem have devoted resources to reconstructing sacred vessels and researching Temple-era worship, hoping one day the Ark will be restored to its rightful place. Others, including religious Zionist groups, advocate for the rebuilding of the Third Temple, an effort that would require the Ark, or at least its symbolic equivalent. But politics complicate archaeology. The Temple Mount is one of the most contested pieces of real estate on Earth. Any exploration tied to Jewish artifacts or temple history is viewed with suspicion by Palestinian authorities and Islamic leaders. In such an environment, even the hint of an Ark discovery could spark geopolitical upheaval. Yet the search continues. From satellite imaging to sonar scanning of cave systems, from remote desert temples to secret Vatican vaults, the obsession with the Ark bridges science and faith. It is not just about what was, but what it might still be. What draws people in is not just the chance of discovery, but what the Ark represents. Divine truth, ultimate power, the bridge between heaven and earth. To find the Ark would be to hold a piece of the infinite. And that, more than gold or glory, is what keeps the quest alive. The Ark of the Covenant is more than an ancient relic. It is a mirror, reflecting the hopes, fears, and faith of generations. Whether carved from acacia and gold or imagined through centuries of longing, the Ark embodies humanity's eternal search for the divine. Its story has crossed deserts and continents, inspired prophets and emperors, and ignited wars and worship alike. It has vanished from history, yet never from memory. It is whispered in scripture, guarded in legend, and pursued in modern expeditions. But perhaps its greatest power lies not in where it is, but in what it means. To some, the Ark is a literal artifact waiting to be unearthed. To others, it is a metaphor for covenant, conscience, and divine presence. Its mystery endures not because we lack answers, but because the questions it raises are timeless. What is sacred? Where does God dwell? And what are we truly seeking? So we return to where we began, with a question that echoes through history. The Ark of the Covenant, was it ever truly lost, or has it always been hidden, not in earth or stone, but in the hearts of those still searching?